Well, good afternoon, guys. Aaron Dorr here with Iowa Gun Owners. As you may be able to tell, we have some new equipment that we're using for our video production, and apparently I have to hit the on button on the microphone to make the audio work. So I apologize for that. Hopefully you guys can hear me now instead, and I apologize for that delay. I always love talking to myself. That works so great. So now I apologize for that. I'm going to post our comments in the comment section. If you guys can get signed back in, and let me know if you guys can hear me this time. Apologies for that. Love this new technology, but there is a learning curve, especially for some of us. Okay. Guys, Missouri just passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act on Saturday. This is a fight that our sister organization, the Missouri Firearms Club, has been pushing for the last 2 years in Jeff City, and I have been heavily involved in leading that fight for our sister organization, the Missouri Firearms Coalition. And now that it's happened, now that it's law and it's already in effect in Missouri, we're getting pummeled with questions from gun owners who want to know, what does this mean? How can we get this done here in the state? And what does it mean if we get this actually passed? Ray says, turn the volume up. So, Ray, can you hear me okay, or does that mean that it was just not good earlier? I want to make sure I don't have this wrong before I proceed too far in this video. Madeline, can you hear me okay? Okay, I guess the audio sounds good from what people are saying. Sorry about the problem earlier, but I think we're all squared away here now. Ken says your sound is good. So, guys, be sure and comment in the comment field so we can see your comments. It helps the video be seen by more people, and we really appreciate that. It gets the information out to more gun owners. So, again, Missouri just passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act on Saturday. I was present at the bill signing ceremony with Governor Parson and the leaders of this fight in both the House and Senate. We had a show with them on here last night. You might have seen that. But we're going to talk about what SAPA is, what SAPA isn't, and how important it is that this gets passed here into law in Iowa. The good news is that we're already being approached by legislators in the state in both chambers who are very interested in advancing this legislation next session. And so we have interest in this already. And with Joe Biden coming after us more and more and more now with executive actions, the need is growing every day. This should have been done this year. This should have happened in 2021, but it was a busy session. We got constitutional carry and a bunch of other items. There wasn't time, I guess. So they didn't make time to pass this. So a brief overview on what this is. SAPA legislation is based on a really simple concept, the anti-commandeering or federalism concept. And the idea is that it's very simple. The states are their own sovereign entity. The states are given the power to rule themselves. And so in a situation where federal and state law contradict, the state has no obligation to enforce federal laws, especially federal tyrannical laws that are unconstitutional in the first place. And the nice thing is, you don't have to take my word for any of this. This has been adjudicated by the Supreme Court for hundreds of years. Going back to the 1800s, the court has always upheld the states. The states have the right to tell the federal government, go pound sand. We're not going to enforce this garbage here. It's happened when it comes to the Fugitive Slave Act back in the 1800s. It's happened over issues of environmental concerns as recently as 2012. It happened in some of the Obamacare and Medicaid expansion fights in 2018. And repeatedly, the justices, both liberal and conservative, have held that the states have the right to rule themselves. If that wasn't the case, then we wouldn't have any need for a state legislature in the first place. We wouldn't have a need for a state capital. We would all be the serfs, the slaves for whatever commie was in the White House today. That would be Joe Biden. And so what Missouri did with House Bill 85 last week is drew a big line in the sand, and they said, this is Missouri, okay? And so you, Joe Biden, you can pass federal gun control if you have the votes. You can do stuff through executive action if you don't have the votes. And we can't stop you from enforcing that with federal authorities. But by goodness, make no mistake, Missouri cops, Missouri troopers, Missouri deputies, we're not going to be enforcing this garbage here. And this passed into law on Saturday. It had an emergency clause. It's already in effect in Missouri right now. And the DOJ is losing their freaking minds. Losing their minds. Because the last thing that Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, our Attorney General, want is a growing number of red states and lawmakers in red states to realize the power they have, which is we don't have to enforce any of the federal laws. It's our decision as a legislature which federal laws we choose to assist in the enforcement of. It's very simple. And so, again, in Missouri right now, the DOJ is losing their frickin' mind because they have the first state now in the country to enact SAPA law with teeth, and they're terrified that it's going to spread. Now, we have to be very careful with our terminology. There's all kinds of states that are talking about SAPA. Our tired old friends, our tired old broke friends at the Iowa Firearms Coalition are talking about sanctuary status. Sanctuary status. I don't think they have any idea what they're talking about. Nebraska enacted a sanctuary resolution this year, making Nebraska a sanctuary state. None of that means anything. What we need is very specific, and we're going to break it down. The Second Amendment Preservation Act is not a resolution. It's law. It's not a feel-good token of appreciation for the Second Amendment. It is law that state officers in Iowa will have to abide by. And so when you see a state that does a resolution in support of sanctuary status, just realize that's like telling your wife, I love you. But if you don't back that up with something tangible, she's going to know you're a liar. And it's the exact same way with all these states that are moving resolutions right now. There's nothing there. There's no teeth there. So number one, we don't need a resolution. We need a law. That's why we introduced this year, House File 518, Representative Jeff Shipley, a longtime champion for gun rights. We introduced the bill. It did not pass this year, but it's a law, number one, not a resolution. Number two, it is not enough to have a bill, a law, that says the states may or may not enforce federal gun control, or the Attorney General will decide which federal laws shall be enforced by state officials. We all know if Tom Miller has any say in this whatsoever, that it's going to be immediately destroyed. We know that. That's pretty obvious. Number three, this bill, this law, cannot have just all this feel-good language with no teeth. And this is what separates what we did in Missouri over everywhere else. And again, this is a fight that I was personally engaged in. I have always worked with and for the Missouri Firearms Coalition, in addition to my work here with Iowa gun owners. And we know an awful lot about what happened there because we freaking did it down there. And so what you need to have is teeth in the bill, teeth in the law, so that if, let's say, the Des Moines City PD violates SAPA law, there's a way to go after them and hold them accountable. Because we all know how this works in real life. The state passes legislation. This happened in Missouri. And then you've got places like St. Louis, for example, or in our case, Iowa City or Des Moines. Heck, it maybe even Sioux City. It just depends on the day with these people. And they say, you know what? We don't care. We're going to do what we want and screw you. And we saw that happen for the last year and a half when it comes to the mask mandates. We saw schools have their own policies in violation of state law and state guidelines. And so we know this is a problem. So what we need in our legislation, what ours has, is actual teeth. So the bill in Missouri, the law in Missouri tells and allows gun owners, if a state agency, state troopers, city cops, sheriff's deputies, any branch of Missouri government violates Missouri's SAPA law, they can be held accountable in civil court. It doesn't take a judge to initiate this process. It doesn't require the AG to get involved. It doesn't require any other agency of the state to intervene for you. The individual gun owner in Missouri, the individual gun owner on his own initiative can take that department into civil court. So if Des Moines City PD says, you know what, we're going to enforce federal gun control, the hell with state law, then gun owners in Des Moines can take them into civil court. And in Missouri, the minimum fine for each violation of SAPA law is $50,000. And so if they take 2 of your guns, well, that's $100,000. If they take 10 of your guns, well, that's $500,000. And in that way, we're not going after the officers who are in this pickle. We're going after the departments, the arrogant, gun control loving departments who have always hated gun owners. And, this has been a long time deal in Iowa. We've all known the Des Moines City PD fought us against stand your ground law. They fought us on constitutional carry. They basically fought us on everything for the last 13, 14 years. And so we know they're going to try and fight on SAPA, so we have to have teeth in the bill. Now, there's lots of danger points here for us as gun owners because the politicians in Des Moines are not stupid. They know how hot this issue is, how popular this issue is. And so it's going to be very easy for them to do what they've done in many states, pass a similar sounding bill that sounds like SAPA but has no teeth. Let me give you an example. In Wyoming this year, the moderates, and yes, there's a lot of moderates in Wyoming. I work out there a bunch. I know it firsthand. We had legislation introduced in Wyoming with SAPA this year, Senate File 81, and the moderates got a hold of it, and they ran an amendment, and what the amendment says is that any federal legislation or regulations that touch on gun rights have to be reviewed by the Attorney General. And if the AG is okay with it, then that's it. There's no options. If the AG is opposed to it, then she may or may not kick it up to the governor, and the governor can then review it. And if he's opposed to it, he may or may not then tell Wyoming peace officers to ignore the enforcement of this law. That's never going to happen. It was designed to kill the bill. It did kill the bill, and it died. But there's lots of ways for politicians to stand up on the floor of the legislature, sound pro-gun, and weaken it down. We have to avoid that. And that's why it's important that you actually have language that makes sense and people who know what they're doing. And that's why, again, we're going to be spearheading this fight because our feckless friends, guys, they couldn't get the constitutional amendment right on the ballot, right? We're not going to trust them to try to screw around with SAPA and biff that all up as well. So this is what it does. Now, you can tell that you've passed quality legislation when your enemies are literally melting down around you. And if you live in southern Iowa, you've probably seen the news on this in the last 24 to 48 hours. The DOJ in D.C., the DOJ has freaked out. Biden is losing his mind that Missouri is basically giving him the one-fingered salute, saying your federal gun control will not be enforced here. And so it's been all over the news for the last 2 days in Missouri that the DOJ issued a 7-page letter to Governor Parson in Missouri, leaked it to the media, of course, first, as is always the case, and basically said, you don't have the right to do this. How dare you try to do this? This is going to cause problems. How are we going to have federal laws enforced if you won't do them for us? And how dare you take this action? And I'm going to read you couple paragraphs of the response from Governor Parson, because Iowa can do this too. Iowa can do this too. We all know what's happened here in Iowa in the last year. Iowa has gone to the right in ways that we have been fighting for the last almost 15 years, not just in gun politics, in all kinds of areas. And the new, I'm gonna choke on my words, but I'm gonna say it. The new strength that we are seeing in the legislature gives us hope that there's actually enough strength to pass SAPA and then back it up, because it will be challenged. Now, in Missouri, the DOJ basically said, you can't do this. And Governor Mike Parson, who I got a copy of SAPA from at the bill signing ceremony on Saturday, wrote a letter in response to the DOJ that I have never seen anything like this from a living politician ever in my life. Here's a couple of the key paragraphs. Said this is from Governor Parson to the DOJ, to Merrick Garland, and much more importantly to Joe Biden by extension. They say your letter reportedly asked for clarification of our new SAPA legislation. However, it was purposefully leaked to the media in advance and is riddled with misunderstanding of our new laws and full of falsehoods. We will not stand by. We will not stand by while the federal government tries to tell Missourians how to live our lives. Instead, Missouri will defend its people from federal government overreach by prohibiting our state and local law enforcement agencies from being used by the tyrannical federal government to infringe on Missourians' right to keep and bear arms. They go through here for 3 or 4 pages and lay out all of the Supreme Court case law precedent that we have told you about in our emails, on our website, and our previous videos that show time and again where the state and federal governments are at odds. The state has the right to do whatever they want to ignore federal gun control laws. Let me turn here to an incredible paragraph. An incredible paragraph here. They say, and this is the obvious hypocrisy, your letter of June 16 also directly conflicts with your own policies towards sanctuary cities. On his first day in office, President Biden rescinded President Trump's executive order that prohibited federal grant money from going to sanctuary jurisdictions that refuse to cooperate with the federal government's enforcement of immigration laws. In April, the Office of Justice Programs repealed the DOJ's policy that required recipients of federal law enforcement grant money to cooperate with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency as a condition of their funding. President Biden, in other words, you have always, this is the left's hypocrisy. When President Trump was in the White House, all these liberal cities, liberal states, offered sanctuary status to dangerous, violent illegal aliens, rapists, murderers, home invaders, robbers, violent criminals, illegal aliens, mind you, were given sanctuary status in these states till the feds, don't you come into our state. But now the shoe's in the other foot, and they don't care for it. They said in this letter, President Biden and the DOJ have decided to reward states and cities that refuse to cooperate with enforcing constitutional immigration laws that protect our citizens against foreign threats. But now you attack Missouri for refusing to cooperate with enforcing unconstitutional gun confiscation laws that put our citizens in danger and degrade our rights. You cannot have it both ways. I mean, Governor Parson in Missouri is dropping bombs on the Biden administration. Dropping bombs. They quote off a whole bunch of Supreme Court case law, which again is all on our website. And they say, accordingly, the state of Missouri has every right under our system of government and the 10th Amendment to place limitations on what state and local officials may do. The Department of Justice has identified no conflict with federal laws from our Second Amendment Preservation Act, and we have every right to restrict our own state's activities and adjust our hiring practices. Any conflict, let me turn the page here, brought by you would only show the federal government was unconstitutionally commandeering Missourians and our state government. Let me jump down here to the last couple paragraphs. They say Missouri will defend our citizens and our laws from federal overreach. In an interview with Anderson Cooper in August of 2019, then candidate Biden confirmed his desire to confiscate guns. Anderson Cooper asked Biden, so to gun owners out there who say a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns, what would you say? Biden's response, bingo, you're right. If you have an assault weapon, the fact of the matter is they should be illegal, period. Your letter of June 16, this is 2 days ago, provides no confidence that the Biden administration has retreated from this radical anti-gun position. Indeed, your letter explicitly endorses the view that federal laws authorizing the confiscation of firearms from law-abiding gun owners would be constitutional and valid. We do not share your radical anti-gun view that federal law may effectively cancel the fundamental liberties guaranteed by the Second Amendment and the Missouri Constitution. One paragraph left here. The Second Amendment Preservation Act protects Missourians from such attempts to violate our right to keep and bear arms. Missouri's Constitution requires the state of Missouri to uphold that right, saying, quote, under no circumstances can we decline to protect our rights against infringement. We will carry out our constitutional duty to stand up and defend Missourians' right to keep and bear arms and the Second Amendment Preservation Act, last paragraph. And we will fight tooth and nail to defend the right to keep and bear arms protected by the Second Amendment, our Constitution, and the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And we will tolerate no attempt by the federal government to deprive Missourians of this critical right. Very truly yours. I love it. Michael Parson, Governor, State of Missouri. So, folks, this is what we need. That is what we need. We need a law with teeth, with enforcement mechanisms that allow us to defend this, and we need the state legislature to pass it and the governor to back it up. And I got to tell you, this may be the time. We may have it. But we're not going to know until January when they gavel back into session. And a lot of things can happen between now and then, and we all know that. So take a moment, guys, and sign your petition in support of SAPA law right now so the politicians know what you want them to do, because this is going to be the biggest fight of our day. Because, we've got a great shall issue law. We have a fantastic constitutional carry law. Thanks to you guys for all of this. We have a fantastic stand your ground law. We have all of these great laws that we have all passed working together, but all of it means nothing if Biden can waltz into Iowa and waltz across America and just take a sledgehammer and destroy our freedom. And he's doing that right now with the AR-15 pistol brace. We're getting a lot of questions from you guys on the pistol brace issue. What do we do? Well, there's not a lot we can do right now. Not a lot we can do. But in Missouri, a gun owner in Missouri never has to worry about a state trooper, a county sheriff's deputy, or a city police officer enforcing federal gun control, because they can't do it. And here's the beauty of it. For any lefty, any liberal rag newspaper or anybody else who tries to say, well, you guys just hate cops, that's the whole point. This bill protects cops. It protects all of those line officers who have contacted us since Biden won his election. We'll put that in quotation marks. We've gotten tons of calls and emails from troopers, from deputies, from city cops saying, we don't want to enforce this garbage. We love the Second Amendment. We don't want to enforce this crap. How do we protect ourselves from getting fired while still, honoring the Second Amendment? Well, the SAPA law protects them, because they can't. By law, they cannot carry out and enforce federal gun control. It protects our police officers. It protects the Second Amendment. It protects gun owners. It's a beautiful bill that I was so honored to be leading that fight in Missouri for the last couple of years to pass, and now it's Iowa's turn. This is the biggest bill of our time. For the next 3 years, 3.5 years with Biden in the White House, this is how we protect ourselves from his out-of-control desire to disarm us. Now, you may be saying, well, okay, Aaron, I want to be clear. You're saying that state officials cannot enforce federal law here in Iowa. That's correct. But doesn't that mean that the federal authorities can still enforce federal laws here in Iowa? That is also correct. We can't stop the federal government from enforcing federal laws in Iowa or anyplace else. But here's the reality. The reality is it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. High-profile cases you hear about in the news, sure. But the vast, overwhelming majority of federal laws that are enforced by state agencies, local agencies, county agencies. Without this cooperation, without state troopers, county sheriff's deputies, and city cops enforcing federal laws, they don't go enforced. They just don't. Don't take my word for it. Look at the marijuana laws. It's illegal. By federal law, it's illegal. It's illegal. But a growing number of states, there's no enforcement because they, as a state, have chosen to not enforce it. The feds don't have the manpower. They don't have the resources. And more than that, They don't have the political guts. I'm sorry, they just don't. If they start coming into Iowa heavy, or Missouri or anywhere else heavy, and attacking gun owners like this because they're mad the state won't enforce their BS unconstitutional tyrannical laws, that's going to cause a political firestorm they've never seen before, at least not in a long time, not in the modern era anyway. And so this is how we safeguard our freedom. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. But we need grassroots support. This is how it's always been done here in Iowa. You guys know this. We have got to make it clear to the State House, State Senate, this is what we want you to do. Constitutional carry was great. It is great. That's why we damn well fought that fight and won it. Stand your ground law was necessary. We got that done as well. We had to fix shall issue way back in the day, 2010. But right now, with this president in the White House, we need SAPA, and we need it bad. So, guys, take a moment, sign your petition, make sure everyone knows where you stand. And then, guys, if you're not yet a member, you got to get involved with IGO. We are the organization leading this fight. The bill has already been introduced. We have an absolute roadmap to pass this. Just did it in Missouri last weekend. Now it's time Iowa follows suit. We're leading that fight. Stand with us. Get involved. Join up today. And finally, guys, share our video. They're not being seen by near as many people because Mr. Zuckerberg doesn't like us very much, and we all know that. Share the videos. Have a safe weekend. Stay safe. Stay cool. Try to anyway, and we'll keep in touch. Thanks.